Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you can just take your seats, we'll get started. A little bit late, but ready for action. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the launch of the World Hydropower Outlook 2025. Thank you very much for being here. My name's Eddie Rich. I'm the CEO of the International Hydropower Association, and it is lovely to see so many friends and colleagues and stakeholders and partners here today. Thank you very much for coming along. This report was launched or released this morning and has been picked up by a lot of media. Victoria, our head of communications, will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we've got Reuters and Bloomberg and the Economic Times of India, and tomorrow we're going to be in the FT and so on. So it's picking up quite a lot. I think we've got a global reach of approaching about 200 million so far. So you are in the right place, talking about a very relevant issue. I want to start by acknowledging that we are online. Here there is a live Zoom, and this is also being recorded. So hopefully not only are a lot of people reading the report and seeing the media coverage, but there will be a lot of people who are coming to or who will see us launch it here today, either live or later on. I want to thank very much our hosts. EBRD, Giampiero is here, and I'll introduce him in a second. But wow, I'm sorry for those people who are online because you cannot see what a beautiful view we have across East London here in Canary Wharf on a sunny day. So thank you, wonderful position. It's wonderful working with you. I also want to acknowledge our partners in this, which is the Global Renewables Alliance. Who is Triya here? I can't see Triya. She might be coming later on. This is an alliance of all the main associations of the renewables, so wind, solar, hydro, geothermal, long duration energy storage, and green hydrogen together. And we are co-founders of that. And also British Hydropower Association, we have Tim. Where's Tim? Hey Tim, who will I'll call upon to say a few words a little bit later. Also, I want to thank our partners in putting together this report. So that's Hydrogrid, Sarawak Energy, who you'll hear a little bit from their CEO in a moment, and Voigt Hydro. And we're also here joined by our friends from the Hydropower Sustainability Alliance. Mariana is there in the back. So great, thank you very much. This is a very interesting moment in hydropower globally. You'll hear a lot from my colleague Matteo in a moment, but it is the point where we're beginning to see this overtake of pumped storage versus conventional. So conventional hydropower is bumping along at about 20 gigawatts a year. So it's growing. It's very important in a lot of regions. And then growing at an accelerated rate is, of course, pumped storage. And in the next 5 years, that will overtake the sort of 20 gigawatts a year. So faster trajectory. And that has all sorts of implications if you think about what is the role of hydropower. It's in many, particularly more developed markets, China, India, Europe, Australia, we're in a situation where the role of hydropower is changing from that baseload role to being much more one of backing up and storing other energy sources, particularly solar and wind power. So an important moment, and it's important also to acknowledge that the nature of hydropower, and particularly pumped storage, is it's very difficult for the market to be designed to deliver it by itself. The market left alone will not deliver it by itself. So the point of engaging with governments, point of political advocacy is really key if we want to see that trajectory continue to grow. And that's why we at IHA have convened the Global Alliance for Pumped Storage, a group of over 50 governments and international agencies around the world who have showing leadership and sharing good practice and sharing good policies and frameworks to enable pumped storage. And all of that is coming together with you guys, with the results of this report into the International Forum on Pumped Storage in Paris in September. And I hope to see you all there. It's going to be a major event. It's going to be the most significant international pumped storage event ever to have taken place. And certainly the most important international hydropower event of this year. So with that, I also want to acknowledge, though he's hiding there, we have the presence of Ivan Oliveira, if you could stand up. So Ivan is the Deputy Secretary for Sustainable Finance from the government of Brazil, who of course hosting us all at Belém in Brazil in November. And so we look forward to all of that and admiring the work that Brazil is doing to make that all possible. I want to turn to our host, Gianpiero Nacci, who is the Managing Director for Climate Strategy and Delivery here at the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development.
Thank you very much, Eddie, and welcome everybody. Yes, an applause to Eddie for the great introduction. So I'd like to welcome you all to the EBRD. We are very happy to share our space, for the very important launch and conversation. We're very proud, in fact, to host you here today during the London Climate Week with all the partners and friends. And we really believe that this event will help strengthening further our cooperation. I'm not going to repeat all the good things about hydropower that Eddie just mentioned. Maybe one element in our view is quite important, is also the relevance of hydropower when it comes to strengthening the overall climate resilience of the energy systems in the country, where ultimately hydropower play a big role. So that's an important element. So it's about enhancing resilience of the system, but also via the hydropower system for the broader electricity system and beyond, as you know very well. Just maybe a couple of additional points from the EBRD perspective. So for us, the work on renewable energy, including hydropower as a source of generation, as a source of flexibility, mentioned about the role of pumped storage, is very, very relevant. In the last 15 years, we've been financing about 1/4 of all renewable energy installed in the countries where we operate. And I'm saying this not necessarily to market our fantastic results, but just to give you a bit of an indication the importance of renewable energy in terms of supporting economic growth, in terms of enhancing the competitiveness of the economies where the EBRD supports and serves. We are a private sector-oriented organization, and so the relevance of the renewable energy, including hydropower, is really very important. Is a cornerstone of creating, the conditions. It's an enabler for economic competitiveness and resilience. Maybe the last point I want to raise, and I'm really looking forward for the conversation today, is also the importance of connecting all the agendas together, including in the context of the COP processes. Last year in COP29, we are a signatory of the pledge for pumped hydro storage. So we are a strong believer of creating also this momentum of cooperation, of commitments that ultimately allow to move forward the agenda and to strengthen the ability for you to actively grow the sector, for us also as financial institutions to promote the further development of the sectors and provide the financial instruments, the financial solutions that allow investments to take place. On this note, I would close here. There is a dense agenda, a lot to discuss, a lot to learn. So I'll welcome you again and really wish you a successful session today. I'll see you later and happy to, of course, engage with you bilaterally on any topic you want to discuss about EBRD. Thank you very much.
Giampiero, thanks very much again for hosting. It's wonderful. We've done a lot of work with EBRD. We will continue to do so if you'll continue to partner with us. There's much, as you say, to be done in the field. Let me turn next to one of the supporters, the sponsors of the report, and long-time IHA board member and the CEO from Sarawak Energy, Datuk Sharbini Suali. And this is on video. So let's see if we can play.
I'm Sharbini Suhaili, the Group Chief Executive Officer for Sarawak Energy. We are vertically
Yeah, thanks very much to Sarawak Energy, and we actually have a secondee, Ismar here, who's from Sarawak Energy and working with us here in our team in London. I've been to Sarawak a couple of times, and just to emphasise what Datuk Sharbini is saying, those low prices, those contribution to industrial development, the efforts that they've made in a complex social and environmental environment to ensure that they are following good practice and sustainability, the energy security that they provide. So all of that reinforcing the message that done well, hydropower is clean, green, modern, affordable, and secure. But is it growing? So let me now turn to Matteo Bianciotto, from Senior Policy Manager at IHA, to tell us what's actually in the report.
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you, everyone. Pleasure to be here today. Great day for IHA, I think. Publishing an Outlook happens only once a year. So we take it really like a great pride, honestly, to show the big results of the great work that the team has done. And this has really included everyone in the IHA. There is a moment where everyone comes together to produce something. It's really when we work on the Outlook. So I think I'm really privileged to be here and explain you why my colleagues did such an amazing work. If we can move forward with the slide. So first key message is that we keep growing. It's not an industry stopping, it's an industry that's growing. In 2024, the installed capacity reached 1,443 gigawatt. This is an increase of 24 gigawatt compared with 2023. 16 gigawatt of this additional capacity came from what we usually refer to conventional hydropower, which tends to refer to run-of-river and reservoir hydropower. Half of these was actually located in East Asia, a quarter in Africa and South and Central Asia. The note here is that this is slightly below, though, our 5 years rolling average for this group of technologies, which usually is set in the order of 20 gigawatt per year. But if we look at the right side of the medal, and we were extremely surprised when we were collecting the data, and that's why this year we did even stronger. We tried to inject more energy in this work because we really wanted to try to understand what was happening, is on the pump storage side. We are really happy to send a message that PSH is closing the gap in terms of development with other type of technology, is growing fast. In 2024, 8 gigawatt were added only specifically with pumping capacity. This is a surprising increase if we consider that in average over the last 2 decades, between 2 and maximum 4 gigawatt of pump storage were coming online a year. So this is a really good change in trend. And we believe something, I will show you later why, that will continue and progress actually faster than what we could think. If we move forward to the next slide, please. So this is a statistical analysis, a bit of where hydropower is distributed around the world. What I really like of this slide is that, first of all, before going and delving into the details, it sends a key message already from point one. It's a technology that is extremely relevant on a global level. You could see the list, you will see most of major countries being listed there with huge, important, significant hydropower fleet. Hydropower is a technology that is contributing strongly to all major economies in the world and is relevant in all regions, all continents. China is and will remain the largest fleet in the world, obviously, with circa 421 gigawatt currently installed. This is followed by Brazil with 110, United States with other more than 100 gigawatt. And then we have Canada, Russia, India, Japan, and Norway being with its 34 gigawatt, the country in Europe with today the largest fleet. I think we can move forward to the next slide, please. Now, what is the trend? How the industry is moving? As I said before, from a conventional hydropower capacity, we are probably slightly under-delivered in terms of the 5 years rolling average over the last few years. But the very good news comes from the pump storage. And now you can see, we can even see this trend. It's quite evident. It starts low, but we believe we're going to arrive very high, especially when we start looking at the pipeline. It's consistently performing above that 5 years rolling average, which is exactly a sign that makes us tell that this is a technology that is growing. It's a sector that is expanding and becoming more and more relevant for our future. If we move forward to the next slide. So, but how are we really performing? I mean, how we should benchmark if hydropower is growing fast enough? What is the target? Where we should go? with developing hydropower. If we look at the projection, the International Renewable Energy Agency produce almost every year in terms of how a net zero economy should look like, they also tell us how much hydropower we need in order to achieve a successful, reliable, just energy transition towards a decarbonized system. And this chart is very significant to me because it tells you where we are today. That blue line is the amount of installed capacity today in the world. It also tells us where we need to arrive. You see the red line with 1.5 Celsius degree is the amount of hydropower that needs to be installed between now and 2050 to make sure that we achieved that target, to cap the temperature rising of 1.5 degree. It's a bigger issue, okay? It's part of our future, develop hydropower at this point, securing it. What this chart says, and I really love this message, is that we have a very good news. The capacity out there is substantially above that level. We just need to develop it. Well, just is a little word, but we need to develop it at this point. And we have a challenge because if we look at the blue, light blue line there now, bar, we see that that's the pipeline that is currently being identified by the HA to be under development. And it's not enough. This is the first message. The pipeline we have ahead is a healthy pipeline. We'll discuss it later more in details, but it's not bringing us up to the point where we need to be between now and 2050. And we're speaking about a technology that, as most of you certainly know, because they work actively in this sector, it's not being constructed in 3 years. It takes perhaps 10, 12, 15 years to be developed. So the time to act is really now, because if we keep losing time, we won't meet the target. Go explain to your kids. We can move to the next slide. Now, if we look more into the regional level, China is not only the country with the largest installed fleet, it's impressively the country developing hydropower faster than everyone else. In 2024, 14.4 gigawatt out of the 24 I mentioned before came from China's development. This is substantial. That said, we think 2024 was also a very good year in terms of development in Africa, where we developed 4.5 gigawatts, which is twice as much was developed the previous year. So there's a very good sign in the way Africa is developing, especially considering the amount of capacity that can be developed there. There's still the potential that needs to be untapped. 2024 was also a very good year for South and Central Asia, where 4 gigawatts of capacity came online. Maybe from a South American European perspective, we didn't see that much of new capacity being developed, but there were still very interesting messages to be told there. From one side, first of all, South America is a country where today hydropower is extremely important. 45% of the regional electricity is produced through hydropower, and we have only used 30% of the installed capacity. So just imagine what could be done at that point. Last but not least, maybe because that's also one of the regions I personally have to follow closely with my work. Europe last year saw a very interesting fact. We've been speaking about drought, we've been speaking about complex environments for operating for hydropower. That despite all that, was the highest, the decade high result ever achieved in Europe in terms of electricity production with 680 terawatt hour, which is something very important that we should keep in mind. Okay, when we speak about the effect of climate change. Please, let's move to the next slide. Let's create a good link because I want to talk a moment about the overall result for generation, okay? Last year, not only Europe got affected by very important droughts. Globally, we heard a lot of regions struggling with that. But the data, and this is data reported not only by HA, but you can check also data coming from other association or entities, demonstrate how in 2024, we actually managed to produce 10% more than 2023. 4,578 terawatt hour were produced by hydropower. Now, how to put this into perspective? This is 14% of the global consumption. This is a key technology. This further underline how the technology is extremely relevant today. There is no way to achieve any energy transition if we don't value what we already have, make sure it will remain relevant for the future, and make sure we maximize not only the development of the greenfields, but also the potential production of the existing fleet. In terms of, we have also spent a lot of time in this outlook, and I just want to maybe pause a moment here, doing some deep dive in some specific thematic that we think are really relevant for the sector at this moment in time. And obviously, climate change is one of those. what we start understanding about climate change and the impact it has on hydropower operation at the moment is that it's increasing the frequency of extreme meteorological events, okay? Which means obviously it's causing some potential fluctuations in certain situations, certain scenarios of the hydropower production. But the real key there is that it's actually increasing the value of the flexibility provided by hydropower, and especially the water storage capability of these technologies, that it's increasing the services that hydropower provides to society, especially in a society that is impacted by these extreme meteorological events. We believe, we're actually convinced, talking with our members, looking how things are moving, that hydropower is a sector that is capable of delivering more with less water, more value to society, shareholders with less water. I think we can maybe move to the next slide. Okay, as I said before, we've been doing really a lot of work this year. This is a bit our new publication, new work. We wanted really to understand how the sector is going to move over the next 5 years, decades, 2 decades. And we did it looking at what projects today are out there, are under development. We tried to classify projects between phases in which they go through, from the announced to the plan, to the pending approval, regulator approved, and those that are under construction. First of all, we have 1,075 gigawatt that is under development. We have more than 1 terawatt globally of hydropower currently under development. 600 gigawatts comes from pump storage. And this is why we are saying we expect pump storage on a certain point in time to become the predominant contributor to the hydropower development globally. Before moving to the next slide and closing this presentation, also to leave space to the panel discussion, I just want everyone to point at the under construction column, okay? We have 210 gigawatt currently under constructions. Means there are 200 gigawatt of hydropower plants where we're already moving grounds, which we expect to come online probably the next 5 years, potentially between now and 2030, which tells us that if everything goes well between now and 2030, we should really start seeing an acceleration of that rate of deployment. I would say 20 gigawatt of conventional and probably even more of pump storage if we consider how much is there already approved by the regulator and just waiting to get the final investment decision to start really moving the ground. This is a pipeline though, so we can move to the next slide. As I was saying, so we expect pump storage to take over and become a bit the predominant contributor between probably somewhere around 2030. Even the pipeline looks healthy, yes, but we also have start identifying some issues in that pipeline. I wouldn't call issues, but some aspect that needs to be carefully considered. 80% of pump storage pipeline come from China, one single country. Europe, Australia, and India are the other 3 major contributors to this pipeline. Other countries, other regions are a bit lagging. They're lacking. We don't see them really moving forward as fast as others. And this brings us to the last slide. This is why we need this event. I think all of you already know what I'm talking about. It's the Pump Storage Forum taking place in Paris in the 9 and 10 of September. And we really want you all to join us the conversation to respond to 3 questions from my perspective, if you ask me. One is how we make sure that that pipeline increase and we reach that red line of the chart before. How we make sure that those projects move forward fast enough in time through that pipeline. And point number 3, how we can make sure that all regions, all countries are represented and present in that series of projects that we've identified. I think this is all from my side, and really looking forward if there is any questions or looking forward to the panel discussion that's going to follow.
Wow, great work, Matteo. Okay, that's painted the picture. If I can sum that up in one line, that'd be water batteries on the charge. So let's try and hear that a little bit more from the perspective of a few individuals. We've got a great panel together. If I can invite up PM Nanda, Enrique Sola and Karen Atkinson up, and we will start a discussion up here. And in a moment, I'll open up with a few questions, and then I'll ask the audience to come on in. So, can you hear me okay? Good. Right. So I have to my right, PM Nanda, who is the Executive Vice President of Greenco, and then Enrique Sola, the Head of Hydropower Generation at EBRD, and Karen Atkinson, who is the Global Executive Director of Dams and Hydropower at SMEC, the consultants. So let me just start with Karen, if I may, just a very quick question. I'm going to ask this to all of you just for 10, 15 seconds. Is that picture that, that Matteo presented, is that one that you recognize from your business? So Karen.
Press this button. Yeah, I think it is, Eddie. I think we're definitely seeing that things are busy. I think we're seeing that there's a lot of potential in the market, a lot of projects being discussed. Still some challenges in some areas to get those into that construction phase, but we're definitely seeing a huge amount of interest in hydro and pump storage.
Enrique?
Yes, that picture, that project is a challenge, as you can see, no? It's a technological challenge. The construction of that upper reservoir shouldn't be easy, but it's there, no? So there are many places, many sites, so we can develop pump storage. Also, one thing interesting of this station, because there are in our company, EBRD, we were studying this project, is because the head of the project, we are talking about 700 meters head, that is, well, it's above the limits, but it's working. So, okay, there are a lot of room, you know, to develop this project that are really, really necessary in our systems.
Thank you. And actually that picture and our friends from China Three Gorges, this is one of their projects. This is Shangloshan. They will crucify me for my pronunciation of that. But this is a big pump storage commission a couple of years ago in China. Then, if I may turn to you, PM Nanda.
The picture shown by Matteo is definitely going to be the future picture. But going forward, it's not going to be easy. We'll see more challenges coming up. As of now, we have challenges of regulatory processes and under development projects. Going forward, we will have a challenges of supply chain also, skilled manpower also. So that's going to be another, I think, area, if not taken care appropriately, then the picture might not look like what it is. So these are the areas, if taken care, I think the picture will be much better than what it has been projected.
If I can stick with you, PM Nanda, just paint us the picture really in India, because what Matteo was showing us was this sort of bulge of pipeline for India, second only to China, a lot under construction. How are they going? Is this really going to come online in the sense that will those ones which have been approved actually go to construction, go to commissioning? Are there any good examples recently?
Yeah, the picture in India is coming up very fast and very good, I would say. The projects, there are a lot of projects in pipeline. There are a lot of changes which have happened, which have taken place in the policy front, guidelines, statutory front. The organizations have geared up to speed up the clearances of the projects. The construction has already started one of the projects, and I can say from here that first project, 1.68 gigawatt by Greenco, is commissioned last month itself. So the delivery of the projects have started already in India, I would say, for that matter. And second point is in the Greenco, we are working on a mission of 100 gigawatt hour by the 2030. So that's one of the key features. And similarly, it's expected that in India, we might see almost around 50 gigawatt of the projects coming up by 2032. That's what the pipeline of the project looks like. And already if we see almost 7 gigawatt projects are under construction in India, which are expected to be delivered in the sequence in 2026, 27, and 28. And more are catching up faster. So I think that the picture in India is quite encouraging. And whatever delivery targets we are foreseeing for us will come up as expected in that matter. Thank you.
First of all, congratulations on Pinnapuram and a big project in Andhra Pradesh, really cutting edge. Well, I'm hearing from you, 50 gigawatts, right? Already in, well, that was under construction, right? No,
50 gigawatt.
sorry,
is-
by 2032.
2032. So almost 7 gigawatt is already under construction at this stage.
Right.
And by end of 26, we'll be having almost 20 gigawatt in construction.
Yeah.
And another 20 gigawatt is expected by 2028. And the construction period in India is hovering around for the projects in the range of 3 to 4.5 years. We have done this Pinnapuram project in 3 years, 10 months, whereas 1.5 years of the project was in the high time of the COVID. So another project which we are doing now is 1920 megawatt is getting commissioned almost in a 3 years period. So taking that cue, hopefully we will be achieving that around 50 gigawatt number by 2032.
Wow. Okay, so size and speed, which we're not really seeing anywhere else apart from China and now India. I mean, that is a hugely exciting part. How much of that, what percentage is pumped storage?
I'm talking these numbers only for the pump storage. Hydro is separate. Hydro is going slow in India as of now because we are having a lot of religious, social, and other issues coming up for hydro projects. So that's why that's a little bit slower. But PSPs mostly being the off-stream PSPs which are being taken up now, which have less social issues, more environment friendly, and because of 24/7, 365 days construction periods available to these projects. And these are compact projects, mostly penstock schemes only. So that's why these are quicker and faster and coming up very fast.
Thank you very much. Wow, water batteries on the charge. Enrique, Europe, fast changing. You know what I was saying before about this sort of changing role from base load to being backup and storage. That's certainly the case for Europe. Tell us a bit about the role of hydropower in the evolution of the European energy system, and perhaps a few reflections from the Iberian blackouts a couple of months ago.
Okay, the role of hydropower here in Europe is like in the rest of the countries, you know, starting as a base load generation, and now what we can give, you know, to the system is flexibility. Is the main role we have. Yeah, in the past years, you know, past decades, this started, you know, with the nuclear power plants here in Europe. We changed that role of base load to give flexibility. But now with, you know, wind and solar is our main role in the system. We have to give the generation very fast when we pass from, you know, the solar hours to the night hours. That is key role. They are in the Spanish system, for example. We have, you know, huge amount of solar generation during the day, and then we have to, you know, change the generation to other technologies. And, you know, the main role of hydropower is do that to make that transition. But okay, what is the future for the hydropower, at least here in Europe? What I see is that, okay, the great challenge for us is to be able, you know, to integrate as much as these renewable sources as possible. And to do that and avoid what we have right now there in Spain every day, that there are curtailments. We have to stop plants because there are not enough demand for those plants, solar plants. We have a lot of green energy, but we don't have, you know, demanding those hours. So what we really need is storage. And I believe, and for sure all of you, have the same opinion, the best way, to store the energy is with pumped storage. But here in Europe, it's not so easy, and that's the reason why we saw in the, in that slide before, that under construction, there are a lot of plants in China, India, but just a few in Europe. And there is a reason for that. And we have to do something about that. So there are a lot of promoters in all the countries with excellent sites, to promote pumped storage, but we require a change in the regulation. That's what we need. The system right now, the electrical systems, the retribution we get, the incomes we get in the projects, we don't have enough, to develop these projects here in Europe. So if we have to give these services, because they are required in order to integrate all this renewable, there should be something to be changed, regulatory, in order to give us, I don't know, capacity payments or another kind of income that recognize all these services that we are providing. And this is the only way that here in Europe, there is a change and there will be, projects under construction. This is the main problem we have in Europe right now. So, and then if you want, we talk about, the blackout and all of that.
Well, just a quick word on what you said. I mean, of course, as I said at the beginning, the market doesn't deliver by itself, not for pump storage, because of that, the high capital costs you're saying at the beginning, and also that long-term visibility. You don't know how much you're going to be relying on a battery, on a water battery. So we have to design the market for it.
Same issues for the other batteries.
Your microphone. Yeah.
Same issues for the rest of the storage, technologies like batteries. Yeah. There should be something new. There will be a change, regulatory change, in order to allow all these technologies to deliver, the projects.
Look, we can get on between the conversation between chemical batteries and water batteries in a moment. Perhaps we will with the audience, but yes, I wouldn't want to leave without you saying a few words and reflections about the Iberian blackout.
Okay, at least the role of hydropower there in the Iberian blackout was essential in the recovery part. We were not participating a lot during, the time where this blackout occurred, but they were essential during the recovery process. Okay, there are protocols there in Spain. We have to test these protocols every year, so all the staff in the plants knew what to do, and all the plants, the main plants that are involved in the recovery. In the recovery plants were ready, to give the service in less than an hour. So at that sense, it was a success to be ready, to start to recover the system. I think this recovery was very well done by the plants, also by the system operator, and at least in that part, it was a success. Then the reasons about the blackout and all of that, I believe there are some reports, around, and our opinion and all the data that we have is there was at that moment a lack of synchronous generation in the system. There was no enough units, to provide inertia and to provide voltage control, and that was the main reason we believe of the blackout. But I think it's still under investigation. There are different opinions. The system operator is also, preparing a report about that.
I think one thing to add to that, which is not in dispute, is that in Spain, hydropower was the first responder after the blackout. It does provide inertia, and I think of course, the battery support that it has is going to be necessary in any sort of balanced green system. If I could turn to Karen, SMEC works all over the world, not quite, but in almost most markets. And be interesting to hear from you. A lot of promising stuff coming through from the report, but what do you think are the countries to watch? Where are the markets most promising? Where are they following China and India's lead?
Thanks, Eddie. Well, it's interesting that we were just talking about the Iberian blackout, because one of the countries that Matteo mentioned as having a strong pipeline is Australia. And Australia's own journey with pump storage began with the blackouts in South Australia, where exactly the same situation, you know, the grid failed because of the so much solar in the system and not enough regulating capacity. So that generated the Snowy 2 project, which is still ongoing. But I think since then, you know, Australia has really picked up the charge with pumped storage. And so you have the government-sponsored projects of Snowy 2 and the Queensland Hydro scheme, which are moving forwards. But also there's many private developers looking to develop pumped storage in Australia, and looking to get those projects across the line. And so we're very pleased to be able to support those projects, and we're really hoping that we see some of those start to come through into construction phase soon, because there are quite a few of them. And there's some interesting mechanisms being tried in Australia, particularly New South Wales has a scheme called the Alteza, where they're giving grants and financial support to storage projects to support the system. So we're looking very closely to see if that kind of mechanism will help get the New South Wales storage projects off the ground, perhaps quicker maybe than in some of the other states, but let's see. You know, so Australia is definitely a great case study and a great country to watch. In the rest of Southeast Asia, you know, we heard from Dato Sharbini earlier, and Sarawak are certainly moving ahead strongly with studies for pumped storage in the Malaysian context, and so we're very hopeful about that. They're very forward-looking and have a great climate and geography in which to do pumped storage. But other Southeast Asian countries are also very bullish on pumped storage. So there's a lot going on in the Philippines at the moment. Thailand is looking at pumped storage. Indonesia has some projects under development. So we're seeing interest in pumped storage picking up a lot in many parts of the world. You know, my sense is that there is more lessons that we could learn from India and China about how they're doing these projects at speed, and perhaps with a little less risk than some of the conventional ways that we would think of doing these projects, which might help to make the projects more attractive, more commercially viable. You know, by taking them offline from the river systems, by looking at the construction methodologies and things like that. You know, there's a lot of innovation, and we're really pleased to be working with PM Nanda and Greenco on some of their projects. So yeah, a lot of positive stories and a lot of developments we can take forward.
Thanks, Karen. All right, so big picture. I mean, there must be a reason why there are over 50 governments and international agencies who've joined the Global Alliance for Pumped Storage. There's an appetite out there to, first of all, to get the stuff built, but to understand, you know, what are the challenges to get solutions to, what are the liberalized, what are the ways of enabling pumped storage development in a liberalized environment. That's the perfect segue for me to open this up, and perhaps first of all turn to Tim Montague of the British Hydropower Association, who can say a little bit about what's happening actually in this market, a liberalized environment with a lot of potential.
Thank you very much, Eddie. pleased to, I'll come and stand up, why not? Very pleased to be here. Thank you very much for hosting. I suppose I'll give you a quick picture on the British picture. There are currently 11, I'm going to focus on pump storage particularly. There are 11 pump storage schemes in planning or in development. A number of those of which have just applied to the government's cap and floor scheme, which is a regulatory support mechanism to enable investment and also be able to pass cost to the consumer. That's been rolled out at quite a pace. We had a change of government last year. In October, they issued a Clean Power 2030 ambition and report, which looks at sort of 3 times more wind and solar than we currently have by 2030, and they want to get to a 95% clean power grid by that date. So hugely ambitious, but it could happen because we already have quite a bit of renewables on the grid, notably wind. But of course, as we've all pointed out, that's a huge challenge in terms of the storage capacity. The energy system operator has suggested to government that they need between 2.2 and 7.7 gigawatts of extra storage by that date to get there. So we've got these projects in the pipeline. A number of them have applied to the scheme, and I think the point that I might pose rhetorically to governments around the world and to experts around the world is to who focus on this space is how do governments typically invest in hydropower or encourage investment? What is that balance between private and public sector? And I think our regulator has used this cap and floor scheme very well for interconnectors in the last 10 years, and they've struck that clever balance between passing cost to consumer and been making it sufficiently attractive. But at the moment, it's looking a little bit mean. I mean, it needs to be a little bit more generous to attract investment into such heavy investment for such a long time period. And clearly there's that debate and an education piece to banks and investors in infrastructure and who would say, well, we've got plenty of other opportunities and places to put our capital, potentially at a lower risk and potentially with a shorter return period. So this is the challenge that we face, and no doubt many other countries face as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Tim. So a challenge there for governments and also a challenge, I think, for us in the sector and the developers to do what they can to work on de-risking the projects themselves. And we have a working group on that led by Rebecca Ellis. And if you stand up, just if anybody wants to join the de-risking development working group that we have on that. Good. Let's open this up. Sam, do you want to stand up, introduce yourself?
Hi, Sam Kimmins, Director of Energy with the Climate Group. We run the RE100 group and the 24/7 Carbon Free Coalition, which is a group of, for RE100, 440 companies committed to using 100% renewables. Together, they've got demand the size of South Korea. So we'd be the 10th largest country in the world if we were a country. Now, those companies are putting their money where their mouths are and investing in renewables through PPAs, through buying certificates, through various methods, through their own self-generation. Now, a lot of their investments focus on wind and solar. And hydro has got a bad rap over the years because people focus on Norwegian hydro RECs and go, well, what's this actually adding? My question to you is, what can the corporate community do to help you raise that bar to get into the I forgot what color it was, but to get to the target for 2050, de-risk projects by bringing in that corporate finance, by bringing in corporate PPAs in the hydro sector? Because for a lot of companies, it's a little bit scary. It's quite big. It's longer term. What are the answers there? Without wanting to add too much complexity, a lot of those companies are looking to go from manual matching to 24/7 matching of renewable power, and pumped hydro is looking increasingly attractive to those companies wishing to do that. So what is the role of the large corporate buyer? How can we help?
Thank you. Before we take that, perhaps we can see if there are any other questions. I should point out that RE100, part of the question of de-risking is about making sure that it's sustainable over the longer term. And RE100 recognises the hydropower sustainability standard as a way of certifying for RECs. Yes, Ajay. Introduce yourself.
So I'm Ajay Chaudhary. I look after the hydropower business development for McDonald, and we do a fair share of studies for pump storage around the globe, including UK, Australia, or the other markets as we speak. For me, the observation is we should exclude China the way you guys decided, because the approach to development of pump storage or hydro for them is a different. Other places around the world, big hydro has been developed by the public sector, you know. The question is, and that's where India comes into play in the sense that majority of it is being developed under private sector and big hydro. So what we can learn from India in terms of the policy regulation, what is that is happening in India that is allowing the private sector to take construction risk, and that includes the banks also, to take the construction risk and take these projects forward. For me, construction risk and the planning risk are the two major risks on a hydropower or a pump storage scheme. And when I do projects in Africa, even 400, 200 megawatt projects where IFIs have a lower DSA, RA, et cetera, to take projects forward, we struggle for 10 years to get them financed. How will commercial banks in developed market put money to take construction risk for 5 years, 6 years? That's a question. And that is where what we can learn from India in terms of the policy framework, which will, because otherwise these are nice pictures, but projects are unlikely to happen.
Before Ananda, I ask you to respond to that, perhaps we'll take one more in this round. But I am glad you asked that one. Yes, please.
Hi, thanks very much. Very interesting conversation. So I'm Stephen Crochet from Re-Energize. We're developing novel pumped hydro. But one of my questions to the panel is really about, do you find that water abstraction and sort of drought is an increasing problem for pumped hydro projects? We're certainly seeing inbound inquiries because of lack of water availability to build conventional pumped hydro projects. Is that something that you're seeing as well?
Thank you. Thank you. We will come back for a second round. If you'll, this is eating into to wine time, but I think it's, if you forgive me, it is important we started a little bit late. But let's keep our responses very short. Look, I think started with you, PM Nanda, on what we can learn from India, but you can also perhaps take the drought question.
Yeah, thanks, Ajay, for asking a good question. The point is that in India, if you look back 7-8 years back, there was no policy in place for the pump storage projects, and there was no takers for the pump storage project. When we started our first project, there was a total policy bankruptcy. But now the vision which is driving the pump storage in India is the 500 gigawatt renewable power by 2032. And for that, the work is going on at a hectic pace or at a desirable pace. Now, if we are going to match the 500 gigawatt of RE, we have to have the storage, matching storage with that. So that's the driving force, which is encouraging the policymakers and the statutory authorities to cope up with those requirements. So that's how the policy framework has come up. Now, talking about the construction risk, is that construction point, mostly these projects are off-stream projects which are coming up. That's where the construction risks as perceived in the hydro, which these are quite lesser on this side of the project. Second point was regarding the financing of the projects. Now, with this 500 gigawatt RE projects coming up, all the states in the country are looking for the storage requirement of storage services. So there is, if you follow the energy markets in India, lot of storage contracts are coming up with each state coming up with that project. In last almost, I can say in 6 months only, we have seen the energy storage contracts for almost 5 gigawatt. Another 7 to 8 gigawatt energy storage contracts are coming up in next 3 months of time. So that's an area when you tie up the project well in advance in 4.5 years is the delivery period in the contracts. So that is encouraging financiers to come up with the funds. That's why all Indian and multinational financial agencies are there supporting the project, and the financial risk is not there at the moment. And upstream projects are diluting the risk, which is comparable to the hydro projects. So that's how this situation is becoming more conducive for implementation of pumped storage projects in India. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen, do you want to come next on any of those, including India, perhaps?
Sure. So I think that there's some really interesting points there. So, I think I agree with what you've said about India and how India's has moved forward. They've really shown leadership in how they've driven pumped storage from a policy regulatory perspective and made it possible, removed the roadblocks. I think also the other thing that's made India a success story is that focus on the closed loop off-stream developments that they've done there. To the point about drought and whether that's causing problems. If you're a closed loop off-stream system, not so much of an issue. So I think that's one part of the answer to the drought question. The other part is also that we always have to do the hydrological studies for any scheme. And yes, maybe there's some changes in the patterns of dry seasons and wet seasons and which catchments are the most attractive. But to be honest, we're seeing some areas that are attracting more rainfall than they perhaps would have before. So it's not a drought scenario across the board where all reservoirs are running dry every year. That's not the case at all, and we've seen that there's more generation coming through. So I think we have to do the studies properly, of course. We have to look at closed loop systems, particularly for the pumped storage area. But it's not a deal breaker to say this is something that's not going to work in future at all. I think to the point about how do we encourage these systems and make them happen, I think one thing PM Nanda talked about the governments putting out storage contracts. And I think when the governments do that, they perhaps need to recognise the need for the mix of chemical batteries and water batteries. Chemical batteries, fine, they'll get you so far, but they don't have the capacity, over time that the pumped storage and the water batteries do. And so if the governments come out and say we want things that can be done fast and we want things that can be done cheap, then of course chemical batteries are going to look more attractive. But is that really giving them the right mix in the system going forwards? So I think from a regulator's point of view, they need to set the drivers right in the contracts that they're putting to market, to give the pumped storage the chance to put the best projects forward to get considered. And then from the commercial side, I think one thing that's always challenging for the commercial equation with hydro is the timescale. It's just the timescale over which the asset will generate the return, and how do you factor that into a traditional equation that the banks and financiers would do. And so how do we have that conversation to say, okay, look, over time, this asset will be very, very lucrative, just maybe not the timescale that you're used to looking at. I don't know what the answer to that is, but that's one of the issues. So, Enrique.
Okay, it's quite difficult to make a business scale, no? A business case with a pumped storage plant. No? So I don't have the solution, of course, but I believe, you know, you said here in the UK, we're talking about cap and floor mechanisms. That could be the way. There should be enough attractive, you know, for the promoters to take that adventure, that risk to build up pumped storage. But that's the only way to have. I don't know. We were talking about 4.5 years, 4.5 years. Okay, I'm thinking about 6 years, but we have to learn how to do that. But we have to have the certainty that after 6 years, we have, you know, a reasonable income, you know, in the plant, and not just for a year or 2 years, you know, for a medium period of time. So I believe that's the only way. And probably if with, you know, reasonable capacity markets, cap and floor mechanisms or whatever, there will be, you know, promoters that could do it, no? But there should be something. At least here in the UK, they are, you know, trying to do something. In other countries in Europe, they are doing nothing, just waiting, you know, and the time is passing. So if you add that 6 years, 5 years construction, the 3 years you need, you know, to do all the permission, we are talking about almost 10 years for project. So now in at least our company, Iberdrola, is promoting projects there in Spain, also in Portugal. We are looking for opportunities in other countries. But okay, we are working and advancing, but we don't see that there are, you know, enough changes, you know, to be sure that in a few years we will be in that part of the chart, you know, in the under construction. No? So I don't know, you know, it help from regulators.
Look, I'm very conscious of time, but I think we do. It's only fair to give one more round. But if I may just come back, Stephen, your question: is drought a problem for hydropower? Absolutely. Is the answer less hydropower? Absolutely not. I mean, it is very, very clear that we, whether we like it or not, are going to need a hell of a lot more water infrastructure. Water storage can be energy storage. And there is a great opportunity here to increase the ability to build resilience through hydropower. And then I would add, of course, closed loop pump storage. Hydropower is, of course, a particularly resilient way because it doesn't touch the rivers. And that's a big campaign we'll be trying on for the next year to help people understand and get that narrative right.
If I have to add one line in that, we have been studying this pattern for quite long now for these droughts and other issues. See, the pattern which is going forward is that we are not having lesser precipitation. The precipitation, amount of precipitation is remaining the same. It's only the dispersion which is changing. And when we specifically talk about off-stream project, the amount of precipitation matters for us because that's what is going to count for my losses and other things, etc. So the trend is not discouraging for the off-stream PSPs at all. That's what.
Okay, 3 more questions, 30 seconds each and 30-second answers, and that's it. Okay, thank you. James, Jonas, and Kieran, hi.
Hi, James Stevens from Preformed Windings. I'm really sorry getting in the way of the wine, but I'll keep it brief. Question for PM Nanda, actually. You mentioned one of the primary challenges to achieving this outlook was supply chain. So I just wanted to very briefly understand if there's any specifics around the supply chain there. And as a member of the supply chain, what can we do? We're hungry to hear what we need to do, and assuming it's reasonable, we'll do it. We believe in hydro.
Jonas Moberg, introduce yourself as well, please.
Thank you, Jonas Moberg, Green Hydrogen Organization. So we are one of the partner organizations with IHA in the Global Renewables Alliance, where of course we have wind and solar and long duration storage as well. Firstly, congratulations, Matteo, really masterly, absolutely. So on behalf of all of us in the renewable space working together, brilliant. We're not here to analyze and learn, I'm afraid, but to do. So building on what James is saying, what are the conclusions to make this happen faster? I want to hear not just from the panelists, also from Eddie, what needs to happen. You may not know that renewables, of course, are going up an awful lot. Turning it into renewable fuels like hydrogen, ammonia, and so on is not going so well. We're way behind. It is too expensive compared to fossil fuels. Some of the few cases where we are seeing it is where we have hydropower, where we have a bit of excess power that might be a little bit cheaper that we can tap into to get our industry going. What else do we do to scale it up together faster?
Very nice. And Kieran, please again introduce yourself.
Hello, Kieran Hansen, Hydroplan. We've been at a number of the Climate Change Week events this week. There's great stuff. There's lots of chat about AI, data centers, the speed at which this is coming up. Lots of chat about the desire to invest in renewables, but we're just too slow in hydro. We are just too slow. This is Karen's point. What can we do to make it better? How can we make it faster? Modular nuclear reactors are meant to be faster. Can we do modular hydro?
Yes, modular hydro. I know the PM Nanda has a response on that. You got 30 seconds each, but if you can try and tackle as much of that as you can.
Yeah, we have already worked on that modular pump storage projects. Yeah. This Pinnapuram, which we have commissioned 1680 megawatt, and another one 1920 MP project, which is coming up in, which will be commissioned next year around May or June. These both are modular projects. So you can put any part from any project to any site. We have customized because these were off-stream projects. So we had that flexibility to customize. We had to spend a little more money on the upper reservoir, where we had to customize the dam to suit the requirement, but they are perfectly modular projects. More to say on this is we have almost 22 projects in pipeline for another 20 years. And this 22 projects will have only 7 projects basically to be designed. So every project will have 1 or 2 modular projects coming for that. So that customization we are doing in most of the projects. So in off-stream, I would say it's definitely possible. It can be done comfortably.
Okay, Enrique, quicker, faster, more.
Yeah, well, what I could say is I believe, at least in the countries we operate, that is Portugal, Spain, south of Europe, a lot of renewables, a lot of solar, a lot of opportunities for the, the industry of the country to have reasonable priced electricity, but we need something more that is storage. So my final words will be to say that we need to do something to be able to really promote here in this area more pump storage projects.
And Karen.
There we go. Look, I mean, to the point of having all these data centers and all these energy hungry industries coming online. The good thing is that they are all looking for renewable power and using benchmarks like RE100 to make sure that they secure that. So that's great. That creates the demand for renewable energy, and the more demand there is for renewable energy, the more that we're going to need to diversify, because wind and solar can't do it on their own. They're great, but they can't do it on their own. So then that puts in place the drivers for hydro and pump storage. And then we need, on the other side, the regulatory financial environments to get the projects to happen. Part of that is learning from projects on how to go modular, how to reduce the construction times and risks, which we're doing. in many parts of the world. So we just need to put those pieces of the puzzle together, and we'll be away very soon, we hope.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Because Jonas asked for my comments as well on this. Look, three things: government frameworks. We need, the financial modelling and market design to make sure that this is the hydropower is enabled. We need better practice from the sector itself. That's part of de-risking. A large part of de-risking is around the sustainability, and we do encourage all our members and beyond to use the hydropower sustainability standard, and we encourage governments to streamline that into their systems. And we need more learning, which brings me on to the final slide and the closing of this. Just a reminder that we have an opportunity, a platform for learning, for cooperation, for understanding between governments and between the companies and between the two parts themselves. So please do all come. You can grab hold on your phone of the QR code, or you can go onto the website. You've heard what we said, what the report says about pumped storage, water batteries is really charging up now. So I hope to see you all there, and thank you very much for your time. Thanks again to EBRD for hosting. Thanks to all the panelists. Thanks to all the audience. Let's go and have a drink. Thank you.
I'm Sharbini Sohaili, the Group Chief Executive Officer for Sarawak Energy. We are a vertically integrated power utility based in Sarawak, East Malaysia, and Malaysia's largest renewable energy developer. Our vision is to deliver sustainable growth and prosperity for Sarawak by meeting Southeast Asia's rising demand for reliable and renewable energy. We are pleased to be the global launch partner for the 2025 World Hydropower Outlook by the International Hydropower Association, or IHA. IHA continues to lead the global conversation on sustainable hydropower, tracking progress, identifying gaps, and highlighting what's needed to move forward. We commend their commitment and leadership. Hydropower has long been a cornerstone of clean energy. Today, it is more critical than ever. As we face accelerating climate challenges and growing energy demands, hydropower offers not only renewable energy, but also reliability, flexibility, and long-term stability that the global energy system needs. It is a quiet force, but a powerful one. In Sarawak, hydropower is the foundation of our renewable energy strategy. Since our shift towards hydropower in the 1980s, we have grown our generation capacity from just over 1,300 megawatts in the 2010s to nearly 5,900 megawatts today, powered predominantly by hydropower. This transition has allowed us to reduce our power sector emissions by over 70% since 2010. We have also begun exporting renewable power to our neighbors, first to West Kalimantan, with plans to interconnect with Sabah, Peninsular Malaysia, Brunei, and Singapore. Our hydropower backbone has enabled us to offer Malaysia's lowest average unsubsidized tariffs and amongst the most competitive in Southeast Asia. This supports both economic growth and energy security. Hydropower has also laid the groundwork for our broader renewable ambitions. We are scaling up solar, exploring cascading run-of-river hydro, and developing pump hydro storage, all contributing to our target of 10 gigawatts by 2030 and 15 gigawatts by 2035. For Sarawak Energy, hydropower is not just about generation, it is about sustainable development. We align our practices with the San Jose Declaration on Sustainable Hydropowers, guided by the principle that the only acceptable hydropower is sustainable hydropower. Our hydroelectric plants like Bakun, Murung, and Batang Ai have brought transformative change to rural Sarawak. These include roads, electricity, water, and improved access to education, to healthcare, and connectivity. Communities are now engaging in ecotourism, aquaculture, and artisanal crafts. We are proud that Bakun, Malaysia's largest hydroelectric plant, is currently undergoing international sustainability certification, reaffirming our commitment to global best practices. The World Hydropower Outlook is a timely and essential resource. It tells us where we stand, what's holding us back, and where policy and investment efforts must be focused. It also highlights inspiring examples of collaboration and innovation. At Sarawak Energy, we do not see sustainability as a trend. We see it as both our responsibility and opportunity to contribute to a world that is safer, cleaner, and more equitable. We are proud to be a global launch partner for this World Hydropower Outlook initiative. Let us take the insights from this outlook as a shared roadmap. The world needs more hydropower, but the sustainable, just, and forward-looking ones. Together, let's continue advancing sustainable hydropower for the global clean energy transition. Thank you, and we look forward to continuing this journey together.